We live in this amazing age of constant technological progress. We've got AI, we've got biotech. It's incredible. But you have to wonder, with all this focus on science and tech, are we maybe missing something? Something fundamental about ourselves? Let's get into it. So, I want to kick things off with a big question for you to keep in the back of your mind. In a world that's being run more and more by algorithms and code, a world all about data and efficiency, what's the one human thing we might be accidentally leaving behind?
I mean, let's be real. We're living in a world completely built by STEM. That's science, technology, engineering, and math. Society basically sees these fields as the only real engines of progress, the absolute key to our future. And, well, it turns out that where we put our attention, that's exactly where we put our money.
And this isn't just a gut feeling, it's a cold, hard financial reality. If you look at this chart, you can see the overwhelming majority of funding, all those research grants, all that private investment. It just pours into fields like AI and IT. Meanwhile, the humanities, the study of human culture, history, ethics, they're often left with just that tiny little sliver. Okay, but here's the thing. This massive imbalance, it comes at a price. While we are absolutely racing ahead with technology, we're starting to see these deep, deep cracks appear in the very fabric of our society. This tech-first approach, for all it's good, seems to be failing us in some really critical ways. So what do these cracks actually look like? Well, we are dealing with absolutely staggering levels of economic inequality, a mental health crisis that feels like it's touching everyone, and honestly, an alarming number of young people just checking out of the education system. These are not small problems, right? They're complex, they're deeply human, and a purely technical fix just isn't cutting it. And you know what? This isn't some new 21st century problem. In fact, if we look back, history has this incredibly powerful lesson for us from Edo-era Japan that it feels like a warning for our own time. So back then, driven by this one single goal, pure economic efficiency, they launched this huge, unrestricted land development project. And yeah, on a technical level, they hit their targets. But the result? It was an absolute disaster. They completely wrecked local ecosystems, which in turn led to the total collapse of their communities. And eventually, it destabilized their entire social foundation. See, they had the technical how, but they completely forgot to ask about the human and environmental why. So, if more technology alone isn't the solution, then what is? Well, the argument we're exploring here is that we need to rediscover the humanities. And I'm not talking about them as some soft skill or a nice to have. We're talking about them as the essential framework for understanding ourselves and the world we're building. This is what the humanities do. They provide the context. They're the ones that ask the questions that science by itself just can't answer. Questions like, what does a just society actually look like? Or what does it mean to live a good life? The humanities explore the ethics, the values, and the culture that shape how we use all this amazing tech, and how it, in turn, ends up shaping us. Let's take mental health again. It's a perfect example. A purely technical or drug-based approach often just focuses on getting rid of symptoms as fast as possible. But an integrated approach, one that combines medicine with things like dialogue and counseling, which is a very humanistic practice, that aims for something more. It aims for sustainable recovery by treating the whole person, not just the symptom. All right, so the big question is, how do we actually fix this imbalance? The source material we're looking at lays out a really clear blueprint. It's built on three core pillars for bringing these two essential ways of thinking back together. The blueprint is basically a three-step process. First, it all starts with reforming our education system because that's what shapes the next generation of thinkers. Second, it tackles the money, how we balance research and funding to support a much wider range of questions. And finally, it's about getting these new priorities baked into how our governments and our biggest industries actually work. And here's what that actually looks like on the ground. For education, it means we have to start teaching critical thinking and cultural context right alongside the hard sciences. For funding, it means we need to invest in long-term humanities research, not just projects that have an obvious, immediate economic payoff. And in the worlds of business and government, it means building teams with diverse skills and making ethical reviews a standard, non-negotiable part of all tech development. So, what's the end goal here? What's the big vision? It's really about building a future where we're not just smarter, but we're also wiser. A future where all our innovation is guided by a really deep understanding of what it actually means to be human, so that it truly serves our collective well-being. This quote just perfectly sums it all up. The whole idea is to create a society where these human-centric values,
and our amazing technical efficiency aren't fighting each other, but are actually working together. That is the real key to solving our deepest problems and building a genuinely better world.
So I'll leave you with one last question to chew on. As we all continue to build this incredible tech-filled future, what steps can each of us take in our own jobs, in our communities, even just in our own learning to make sure that the progress we're making isn't just advanced, but that it's also truly wise? Thanks for joining me on this one.